Hi everyone. With everything that's been happening in my world, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share some of the little things that I do to help me see things in a different way and handle sorrow. Just, I guess, more positively. I'm sure you've heard me say this before, and if you haven't, you'll hear it many times. I adore the quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I use that very often in my life. And so my most recent Gratitude Thursday was about the loss of yet another wonderful friend to cancer. And just how grateful I am that, have many people that come through my life, and everyone has a purpose and a wonderful spot in my world. And, when something like this happens, it's very challenging, very difficult to get through. And I've had to do this with both of my brothers that I've lost, my grandparents, and I just, over the years of having so much tragedy in my world, I've really developed some things that worked. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. So when my brothers passed away, it was very difficult. When my older brother passed away, I was a little more angry, and it was the first big experience. I had lost my some friends, and I had lost grandparents that lived farther away, and this was my first big loss of someone in my direct family that I was with all the time, and you take it for granted that your siblings are going to be with you as you grow up, your children grow up together, all these things, you take that for granted. And when life changes and doesn't give you that particular hand, it's hard to get through. And a sibling is very difficult to lose, and this was my older brother, so he kind of felt like a protector, like a parent figure as well. So it's very difficult for me. And I did grieve, I did cry a lot. And so when I say that I have these tools, I don't mean that I don't go through the process of acceptance for something like this. I do grieve and I do cry as much as I can to get all those emotions out. That's very important to do. But what I decided on the 1-year anniversary of his death, I wanted to change what that day represented, and I wanted to celebrate him a little bit more. So what I did was I got a memorial tattoo. And so when my older brother was dying, he knew he was dying of cancer. He wrote letters to all of us, and he wrote a poem. And the great thing about my generation and my brother's generation is that we hand wrote things more than we ever did computers and things like that. They just didn't exist when we were kids. And so I had his handwriting, and there was a line in his poem about me. And so I took that section in his handwriting and I had that tattooed. His favorite flower was a rose. So I had a rose sort of involved in this tattoo. And if you see the tattoo, it has a full bloom rose, it has a medium bloom, and a rosebud. And that was to signify my siblings. And I didn't know when I first got this tattoo what that would end up meaning to me. But I got the rose tattoo, and I got his handwriting of the line in the poem about me. And it changed the whole tone of that day. Now, on the anniversary of his death, rather than going into a sorrow again, I celebrate him. And so something that we used to do in our high school days, he was a bit older, so he was in his early 20s, but he would take me down to this amazing bakery in Toronto. There's an Italian bakery there, and Camiso Brothers, a bakery I think it was called, and he took me there, and they had this awesome buffet, and so we would have amazing lunch with the Italian sandwiches, and so that was our thing. And so every year on the anniversary of his death, I have what I used to call him Gingioni, so I call it Gingioni Day, and I have a Gingioni sandwich, and that is a veal cutlet sandwich with mushrooms and sauce, and it's so good. And I think about him, and I can reminisce about the fun times that we had, and the stories and stuff. And now I'm at a place where I can see it with joy, and it does, like, it still affects me from time to time, but it's a great place to be when you can really appreciate and be grateful for the time, even though it was little, but the time that I had with him. And so when my little brother passed away, I decided to do the same thing. So on the 1 year anniversary of his death, I had a tattoo, a memorial tattoo done. And at the time when he passed away, he was living in Italy. So my mom and I went to Italy for the weekend to pack up his things and bring them home. And he was pursuing his dream in Italy. He was an automotive designer, and he was doing an internship at Ferrari. And so we had to go into the Ferrari residence and pack up his apartment. And so he had a dry erase board in his apartment that he put some motivational lines for himself, affirmations and such, to keep himself motivated and, on the right path of achieving his goal of being a designer, an automotive designer for Ferrari. And so I took two of those lines, and they were in his handwriting, and I had those tattooed. So pretty amazing. Again, it changed the tone of that day. So a little insight of my little brother and I, we used to do what he called birthday nachos, and I guess he really enjoyed the nachos that I made. I would layer them, and each layer would go into the oven and melt up on its own, and I would make them sky high. There was so much nachos, but we would always make them for our birthdays. And so now on the anniversary of his death, my family and I have birthday nachos. And we are at a point, he died a bit more recent than my older brother did. And so we're at a point where we can, reminisce and really talk about fun stories about my little brother and be okay. It takes time. Be kind to yourself. It does take time, and do take the time to feel the emotions and the grieving that you need to do to get through that. But there will come a time where you can reminisce and be joyful versus sorrowful. So those are my couple of things that I do to, or have done, to make the death of a loved one a little easier to do. And so I'm looking at what I'm grateful for. So with the most recent passing of a friend, John, what I'm doing is really looking at the fun stories we had in the high school years. And he was a great musician, so I think about the shows that I went to watch him play, and things like that. And it is new, and so it is tough, but I know that as time goes by, we'll be able to not have all the sadness surrounding the memories. So try it, and hopefully it works as well for you as it does for me. Till next time, guys. Bye.